GWIZ. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mike Rennick. I'm the senior broker, the team lead of Team Rennick Real Estate Services, part of that great Keller Williams on the Water family. My guest with me this morning is Mr. Stephen Reed. Welcome, Steve.
Mike, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Beautiful morning here.
GWIZ.
GWIZ.
What's that all about?
Well, GWIZ is pretty soon could become yet another demo site in the city of Sarasota.
So we're standing
in front
of the building right now, right?
Yeah. Let me frame the context of why we're here and what this is about.
Perfect.
People refer to this building as GWIZ, but originally it was the Selby Library, and was built by Walter Nesch, designed by Walter Nesch, Chicago architect in 1976, and is a building with tremendous architectural significance. It combines different, obviously, geometric shapes and colors, and really brings the waterfront to life. It was used as the Selby Library till they built, I guess you would call it a Grecian Romanesque kind of structure in downtown Sarasota. They vacated the site. Then there was a huge amount of community sourcing, fundraising that went on to build the GWIZ Innovation and Science Museum. And a generation of children in the region and school kids would come here, and it was an interactive museum. And you could learn about science, physics, electricity, all the different aspects.
Very cool.
Yeah. And it was a hands-on museum, and people loved it.
What happened to GWIZ?
Well, GWIZ went away. It didn't, like a lot of things that are partly, that are not for profit, depend on a certain amount of city wherewithal and support. It wasn't meeting its financial goals, and so it discontinued, it ended. And it is on city-owned property, and that's the larger context. This is city-owned property. When it closed, geez, it must be about 7, 8 years ago when this thing closed, the city left it. It just sort of left it as an abandoned site. And here's where I'm going to wax a little editorial. I'm going to editorialize a little. We're going to step out of the news side. The city has a history.
I get nervous when he does that. Go ahead.
The history has a history. The city has a history of absolute neglect of some of its property and infrastructure. Case in point, we spent a lot of time over the last few months at the Lido Beach Pool and Pavilion.
We did.
Went from an architecturally significant facility for the community to basically a beachside hellhole that needs repair. So then they point to...
And now, in fairness, they have a plan in place.
Well, they tried to then offload the problem by sourcing out the site to a restaurateur, the Daiquiri Deck Group. It was so unpopular in the community that the city is basically being forced to do its primary obligation of taking care of its infrastructure.
So is something like that going on here?
Similar. This is sat empty. They've made no use of it. They've made no attempt to use it for anything. And so if you were to do close-up video, you'll see parts of it are decaying. Then the city tends to stand back from these sites and say, oh, it needs too much repair. It's in horrible shape. It's a demo project now. But so what we have is a community divided. We have architects. We have a citizens group fighting the demolition of this building, and it's going back to the commission for the third time on March 16 at 9 a.m. There'll be a hearing to see whether there is a demo permit already put in place. It's been challenged and appealed. It went to what's called the City's Preservation Board. It went to that board earlier this month, and it was a split vote to uphold the permit. It would have been a successful vote to preserve it, but the city requested that the chairman of that board recuse himself because he had previously said he believed it should be preserved. So it's going to the commission as a split vote. Historically, the city commission wants this place demolished. It takes a majority to save it, and the only ones who want to save it are Willie Shaw and Jen A. Heron-Koch. Hagen Brody is probably the most adamant about seeing it demolished. And they want it demolished as the first phase of a very important, bigger project, the Bay.
So what will go here if it's demolished?
Well, that's the big picture project. There's this project called the Bay, which the city has supported, which is a 53 acres of city-owned property. This is sort of on the southern end.
Okay.
It will encompass the Van Wezel, the parking lot, all of the city land surrounding that, the city boat dock, where you can launch boats.
Yes.
All of that's going to change. There's a master plan that was developed by the Sarasota Bayfront Planning Organization and an ancillary group that came out of that called the Bay. They came back to the city and said, we will raise funds. City, you provide for the land.
And they will put what on that land? Will it be parks? Will it be buildings? Will it be condos? Or
no.
TBD still, right?
No, not TBD.
Okay.
What it is going to be is some of the above. They did a public process where this group went out and asked, and they did sort of a soul searching in the community, and they decided that the Van Wezel will be reconstructed. That not the theater will stay, but there'll be a big new performing arts hall that will be created on the site with about a theater with 2,250 seat audience, theater, rehearsal spaces, so on and so forth. There'll be a parking garage. There will be a public water access, a park in front, a promenade.
Okay.
There will be pedestrian bridges across US 41. There will be, and this part bugs me a little as an editorial side now, they found that there would be a need for a 3,000 to 4,000 square foot waterfront restaurant that I'm sure will get leased to some private operator on this site. And then there will also be botanical gardens and so on and so forth.
So what's the next step?
The next step is demolition of this.
Well, is the hearing coming up? Or?
The hearing coming up. If this fails to be saved, now the people opposed to it want to support the Bay plan. They want all that stuff.
Okay.
They want to see this building renovated and repurposed for kayak rentals, concession, food, so on. Basically,
it is a unique structure when you look at it from the outside.
Yeah, just incorporate it in the plan instead of knocking it down and starting from scratch.
So there'll be more to talk about.
There will be more.
And we will be back to carry this in a future update.
Yeah, and I urge, as I always do, residents who are for demolishing this or for saving it and preserving it to write their commission or attend the meeting on March 16. It's a big deal. And I think that it's a piece of our history and it's something unique. I'm all for the new, but I like saving unique pieces of our
agree. And in the video, there'll be shots of the outside of the architecture and stuff like that of the building. But we will keep you up to date. We will be back. Steve, again, your knowledge is second to none.
Oh, thank you,
The
Mike.
editorials, you did well.
All right.
I appreciate that. And I want to thank you for investing
Well, thanks
your
for
time
bringing this to
every
the
week.
community. This is good stuff.
Thank you.